stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it.
Never tell me the odds.
The greatest idea in human history, the theory of evolution by natural selection.
You must unlearn what you have learned.
As a date with destiny. In order to be able to think, you have to risk being offensive.
We're living in captivity, and it's time to break free.
Welcome to A Wilder Life with Eric Edmeades.
Hey everybody, welcome back to a really exciting episode of A Wilder Life with Eric Edmeades. Today, we're tackling a crucial yet often overlooked and sometimes taboo topic, sexual health and longevity. Our guest, Dr. Anne Truong, is a leading expert in regenerative medicine, men's intimate health, and anti-aging. As a best-selling author and global educator, she's helped thousands of men regain their vitality without relying on quick fixes. So she's here to break taboos, share groundbreaking science, reveal how sexual health connects to overall well-being, and I think we're just gonna have a ton of fun. Anne, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm really looking forward to our discussion.
Me too. It's funny that when we look at different podcast topics, I sit with the team and they go, what is safe to talk about? What might get you flagged on this social media platform over there? And my goal on this one is to get us flagged as much as we can.
Yes, it depends on which big brother is listening to, right? But
There you go.
it's a very important topic that is so meaningful to each and every one of us. But yet, like you said, it can be flagged because it's reviewed as a stigma, something you don't talk about. I feel it's almost like being a hypocrite. If it weren't for sexual health, we wouldn't be here. It's something that we enjoy. It's something that we have the given anatomy part to give so we can enjoy. But why is it bad? Why is it a stigma? Why is it a shame to talk about it?
This is a big deal. This is a really big deal. I remember my mom telling me that when she was young and she got her period, that she was at school she was at home, but she was getting ready to go to school. And she thought that she was dying. And she thought she was dying because the women in her life, which included two older sisters, mothers, aunts, and what have you, hadn't shared with her that this was going to happen. And it strikes me that if we've arrived at a point in society where we've made certain topics so off limits that we can't share basic health stuff like that with a young girl growing up, there's going to be much bigger problems to come.
Absolutely. And honestly, I was the same thing. When I had my first menstrual period, my mom didn't talk to me about it either. And I think I was scared to death too. And I know that as we were growing up in school, sex education was just little pictures of here and there. We didn't really show you how someone
Here or
get
there.
pregnant. Yeah, yeah. It's very, very basic. It's almost like something you have to find out on your own
Yeah.
and discover on your own. Each of us have our own different path to that path. And so I don't know. That's why this topic is so interesting for me to talk about and to also bring awareness that sexual health, it means longevity, meaning that if you have good sexual function throughout your life, no matter what your age is, it also means good general health and longevity. I saw a 91-year-old man a couple weeks ago still enjoying having sexual activity 3 to 5 times a week, no medication, nothing, all natural. So it can be done. It's not like it's unusual. We just need to know what we need to do to preserve our sexual function.
Yeah. And to your point, these days, it seems for several generations now, it seemed like that if you wanted an education on this, you were going to have to sneak around to get that education. In the 70s, you snuck around and found a collection of Playboy magazines, and this was your sex education. It wasn't. And now what's even scarier is where back then it was hard to sneak around and find it. Now you don't have to sneak around anywhere. It's in any browser. But of course, like everything that is governed online around education, the education is driven by other people's objectives. For example, pharmaceutical companies or porn companies or what have you that are teaching models of these things that are unsustainable, unrealistic, bad for self-esteem, damaging, violent, dangerous, and the like. I'm really glad to have you here. So let's do this, Anne. Tell us your background. What got you started in this? What made you feel compelled to get into it? What was your education? Let's find out a little bit about Anne.
So I've been a medical doctor since 97, and my background is really I'm what they call pain management doctor. So I do I take care of all pain except for surgery through injection, through lifestyle, and everything else that's needed. So I'm like the non-surgeon. And so I've been doing that for a while. And I also learned how to do acupuncture because I was always on the quest of trying to seek for long-term root cause. Because when I first started treating patients, I said, all I'm doing is giving them injection, and it's just temporary. They keep coming back, the problem keep coming back. So I started learning how to do acupuncture. And I mentioned that because acupuncture opened my mind to total body, mind body healing. And the connection between your body is connected, it's just not one organ separated from another. It's like the foot is connected to your brain is connected to your knee. And so that was what was eye-opening for me. And
Mm.
also, I learned how to treat root cause by learning how to do prolotherapy, learning how to do stem cell therapy, because I was always on a quest of trying to help my patient have longer, permanent resolution. And then it became a personal quest. My husband had two stents in his heart, and he had to take three heart medication. And heart medication, because it stopped the stress of the mechanics of the heart, it also affects sexual function. He did had sexual dysfunction, and I didn't want him to take ED medication because it's contraindicated when you're taking heart
Right.
medication. And then I knew a ED medication was just a band-aid because I was really looking for root cause. And because of that, it started me in the quest of, okay, so what is sexual dysfunction? What is ED? What caused it? And how can I treat the root cause of that? And I started looking at, okay, what root cause of ED is due to poor blood flow, is due to inflammation, endothelial dysfunction, and then is due to various medical condition and lifestyle. And then I was already doing stem cell therapy for pain. My husband at that time was in good health. He exercised. Yes, he did have stress, but he also have a strong family history. And so I did stem cell therapy to help restore the blood flow leakage in the penis. And also we also did shockwave therapy, which is a machine that improved blood vessel regeneration. And that restored his function, even on heart medication. And because he couldn't get
Wow.
off his heart medication, and that restored his function. And then from there, I work on my brother and my brother-in-law as well. It's funny because once you start treating, you start asking your friends and family members, and you're like, oh, you have it too. It's just that they were ashamed to talk about it, but when you bring it as a topic and normalize that it is a medical condition, people tend to open up more about it. And my brother had ED, so was my brother-in-law. I started treating them, and that's when we started the whole protocol of our protocol called the Six System to Get Hard again, where it combined treating the brain all the way down to treating the penis for sexual
Yeah.
function.
Yeah.
Again, coming from my background in acupuncture and looking at how the whole body interconnect and work with one another to treat the root cause, and so that way you have longer benefits.
Okay, so you're definitely compelled. There's not a lot of doubt about that. And it is a very big topic, and it's a topic that's under the radar because, like you say, there's shame. Years ago, a friend of mine was involved in the production of a movie about Ron Jeremy, the famous porn guy. And so anyway, I happened to be in Vegas at the time, so we were hanging out for on and off over the course of the weekend, and we got to have some pretty fascinating conversations. And so it turns out what made him so famous was that he had what the industry referred to as consistent wood. And he would be able to hold that for a real long time. And most men just couldn't do that. Even men with normal sexual function couldn't. He was like a superhero. And he said what was interesting is that his career was really adversely affected when the little blue pills, when Viagra and Cialis and these things came out, because now men could perform like he could perform and so on. But that led to another big conversation, and that was the expectation that he and the little blue pill men were creating for men. In other words, I need to be able to perform like that all the time. Why is it not like that for me, or what have you? And so you said earlier about, hey, you got to figure out, you have to treat everything from the mind right down to the physiology. So let's talk first a little bit about the mind, because if somebody has an unbelievable amount of pressure, if say their partner says something like, oh, you can't, those types of things are definitely going to be part of that. What's been your experience of that, and what do you do to support somebody when that's going on?
Absolutely. I'm going to say a sentence that's profound. And actually, when I first figured it out, I said, oh my God, it is so true that the brain is the largest sexual organ. It is not your sexual genitals, it is the brain. If nothing starts in the brain, nothing's going to happen below the belt. Nothing. And when we think about it, it's something that makes perfect sense because the arousal and desire come from the brain.
Yeah.
And that's not what the ED pill give you. The ED pill
No.
just increase nitric oxide and therefore increase flow down to the genital area, but it does nothing for up here. And so the sexual response starts in from the five senses that we have. What we see, our eyes, what we smell, our nose, what we taste, what we hear, and touch. All right. So all of those five senses feed into your brain, and then hormones start to get released in the brain, and then chemicals start to get released in the brain, which then initiate the process to the nerve. But before those chemicals can go to the nerve, it has to be filtered to your emotions, your amygdala. What
Mhm.
emotion are you at that time? What trauma do you hold? Are you distracted? So are you anxious? Are you depressed? Are you distressed? Are you distracted? Or you have trauma? So it's filtered through that. And then from there, it then goes to the nerve, which is in the back of the head, down called the parasympathetic nerve, which is an autonomic nervous system, the parasympathetic nerve, all the way down to the heart. And then the heart increase the heart rate, which then pump more blood out to the blood vessels. But the blood vessel have to expand it has to widen to allow more blood flow that goes down to the penis, and the penis muscle has to be in good function in order for it to be able to be engorged with the blood. When a man has an erection, it is 40 times, it has 40 times more blood flow in it than a non-erect state. So what I'm trying to say is that it starts in the brain, and you can't just have an erection without the brain being involved. And if the
Okay, so
brain
Anne,
is not in a good site, then things are not going to go.
gotcha. So that kind of brings something up that it makes me think of. You mentioned earlier that you began in pain management and so forth. And I don't know what made me do this, but as a kid, I was 18 or so, and I was lit on fire. And I had to
Oh
spend
my
6 months
goodness.
in the hospital, skin grafts. They told me I would never use this arm again. I was very lucky in the end. But I became really concerned about the painkillers that they were putting me on. And I'd been on Demerol for about 3 days, constantly stoned. And I finally turned to the nursing team and I said, I don't want any more painkillers. And they said, you have no idea the nightmare that you're asking for, the pain of second and third degree burns. You don't want that. And I said, yeah, what I really don't want is addiction. So I'll take the pain now. And at 18 years old, they were blown away that I would have that level of awareness. I think 18-year-olds today might start thinking that way, but back then that was quite a thought. But it led to the next thing, Anne, and that was that when I would get, say, a headache or something, I had learned at that point to manage pain. And so my thought was the headache might be telling me something. And so if I take a pill, then I'm silencing the message. So I don't
Mhm.
want to take a pill because I want to hear the message, or perhaps I want to suffer the consequence of what I did wrong. If I went out and got in the sun and I didn't drink enough water and now I've got a headache from heat stroke, I want to suffer. I want to learn the lesson, right? I want to hear the message. Now, that's a small metaphorical example of something I think that you're on about, and that is that when you describe, okay, the largest sexual organ is the brain, and then the right meanings have to be assessed, the right emotions have to be filtered, then the physiological conditions begin, the heart starts to pump more, the blood vessels have to expand, everything has to be healthy along the way. So there's a chain of things. So here's my thought process is that if somebody takes a little blue pill, but they don't have the head part, they're still going to get the result, right? But what they're going to be doing is silencing the message, because if it's not working, if somebody's dealing with ED, then isn't it safe to say there's a problem in the system somewhere, and it might be cardiovascular?
Absolutely. That's why I'm against the ED medication. I call it making the deal with the devil, because you take it, you may have short-term result, in the long term, you're in a bad place, and
When you say you're in a
it's not
bad
treating it.
place, when you say you're in a bad place, is it fair to say, just so I get what that bad place is,
Uh,
on the one side, you may well develop a dependency, because if you didn't solve the problem and the only way to get the solution is with the drug, so now you've got that problem. But then on the other side, if it's not working, there's a bigger problem that might be fatal, that you're masking by taking the medication. Is that fair?
That's absolutely fair. So when I say that you're in a bad place, is that you're not, since you're not treating the root cause of why you have ED, then you're ignoring the problem, and that problem get worse. It's almost like ignoring an infected wound. It gets worse, so therefore it gets infected, it goes down to the bone. Same thing with ED. When ED happened, there 90% of the cause is physical. So is it because high blood pressure? Is it because smoking? Is it because it may be porn? It may be your lifestyle, your diet, your exercise, and your stress level, things like that you can assess. And if you ignore all of that over time, your blood flow or cardiovascular integrity gets worse. So over time, your ED gets worse. And then the AD medication doesn't work anymore. And that's the framework of, if you take ED medication, after a few years, yeah, it doesn't work. Even you go up the dose, and then the next part you go to trimix injection, which is injection medication to the penis, and then penile implant. That's like the algorithm, right? So we don't want that.
Very
We want
profitable.
to say, yeah, exactly. We don't want that. We want to educate men that before you take the ED pills, do this first, because you can reverse your ED. Research has shown 67% of men that have ED 7 to 10 years down the road will have a heart attack. So that's
There,
big.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I was getting at, is you solve the problem, but mask the message. And if you really stopped and heard the message, understood that it was a symptom and it wasn't the problem itself, then you might recognize there's a ticking time bomb, quite literally, in there. Okay, and let me ask this then. I think, certainly as I'm now in my mid-50s, which sounds shocking for me to say out loud, I don't feel that way in the least, but apparently, according to my driver's license, that's what's going on. And I hear around me a lot is people talking about not ED, because nobody wants to admit to that. One good friend of mine recently really was open with me about what he's going through. He's 68 years old, and it's quite a thing for him. But many of them simply talk about it's not as good as it was. But there seems to be an acceptance that decline in say sexual power or in virility, or that's a normal part of aging. And I guess my thinking is that there must be a little bit of truth to that. But given that you have a 91-year-old client that's still taking care of business, talk to me a little bit about that. What is the relationship between aging and sexual function? Are we supposed to see a bit of a decline, or does there never have to be a decline, or what's the story?
That is a great question. So the answer is going to be a little long, because what happened is that when we get older, physiological changes occur in our body, like aging, right? So when you get older, we say beyond Mother Nature, think 35 years, beyond 35 years old, getting older, and for a man, your testosterone levels start to drop. That's the first thing you're starting to feel. Testosterone level drop 1% every year after the age of 35. That's number one. And then number two, when you get older, what happens? You may have more stress, work, life, commitment, all that. You may not have time to exercise. You start to gain weight as you get older. So you are predisposed to have high blood pressure, high cholesterol, maybe even diabetes, but you're not eating the same diet you used to eat. You're not as active you used to be, more work and life and family commitment. So you're like, everybody knows that when you're like in your 40s, you can't get rid of the weight like you were when you were in your 20s. Okay. Because all physiological changes that happen, particularly with the hormone. The main thing is hormone, followed by not able to continue the healthy lifestyle that you have and that you want. And so that just taken aside from not smoking or drinking alcohol, because too much alcohol can also affect it as well. So to answer your question, when you get older, you are predisposed to have medical condition that set you up for decreased blood flow or such as high blood pressure, high cholesterol, diabetes, stress, alcohol consumption, and smoking are the top three causes of, and then testosterone levels start to drop as well. And testosterone help with libido and arousal as well as erection. So all of that combined kind of create a predisposition when you get older to have not a firm, like you said, the performance not as good. You can still get an erection, but it's just not as firm. It just takes longer to get there. And sometimes you lose it. That is ED, but that just means that at that time it should be a warning sign for men. Okay, all right, if I'm starting to see this, let's look at my lifestyle. What am I doing with, am I smoking? I'm drinking alcohol. What diet am I on? What's my cholesterol level? What's my blood sugar? What can I do to optimize my diet? We recommend following the Mediterranean diet. And then, are you exercising? What's your weight? Are you overweight? Are you obese? Those are the main thing. And then on top of that, sleeping and then stress reduction. So my point is that you're predisposed when you get older because of the medical condition that you acquire as you get older. But however, all those medical conditions are reversible. Like I mentioned, blood pressure, high cholesterol, diabetes, all reversible. And once you know that, you don't have to think, oh, I will get it. I can control that. What you need to do is to get your blood lab measured so that way you can see what your testosterone level is.
All right. This is very interesting. First of all, is it fair to say that one would expect as we age, maybe a slight reduction, generally speaking, as we're older, but that reduction is going to be amplified by medical conditions, most of which are lifestyle indicated and reversible. Is that a fair way to put it?
That's a fair way to put it. So I would say when you get older, you may see a decrease in performance, but it doesn't have, you can optimize functioning again by correcting those lifestyle factor.
Okay.
Because, but like I said, my handyman, he's 80 years old and no issues whatsoever. He's on his third marriage. But what he does is he walks 3 miles a day, rain,
Yeah.
shine, or whatever, and he eat well, and he doesn't smoke, and he doesn't drink by choice, and he doesn't let stress affect him too much. And
Okay.
so, what the point I'm trying to make is that that's fairly consistent profile that I see in men. The 91-year-old, same thing.
I've definitely had that experience through clients. We released a book earlier this year, the Post-Diabetic, which is about the reversal of diabetes. And we hear from people frequently that one of their favorite side effects of becoming post-diabetic is that their circulation improves, and of course that has a pretty big impact on their let's say sexual health. So I think I'm really with you on that. I want to ask you a question about testosterone. I'm asking for a friend, but I hear quite a lot about testosterone numbers and so forth, and they're measured it's milligrams per deciliter, or no, it's ng per dl. So you're saying that you would expect to see some reduction with aging and so on. Let's imagine you had somebody who was, I don't know, like roughly mid-50s, and they were like at 955. Where would that be?
Okay, so 955 is pretty good because the range is 300 to 900. If there's a total testosterone level of 955, it's pretty good. However, preface it with that total testosterone is a reflection of all the testosterone that is protein bound as well as free. The free are the one that's more bioavailable. Free is the one that does all the cellular function. So when you look at testosterone, you have to look at free testosterone, which can be measured in the laboratory, and you have to take into consideration a protein called sex hormone binding globulin. SHBG.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you, SHBG. Tell me about that.
SHBG is a protein that binds to testosterone. And therefore, when the laboratory measured total testosterone, it measured the free and the one that is bound to the SHBG. And the one that is free is the one that is bioavailable that does a cellular function in your body. So a man can have a total testosterone 900, but his free level may be low because he has high SHBG.
And
And so that's why you got to consider that.
Okay, let's first talk about how someone could, say, naturally improve testosterone. You mentioned the Mediterranean diet, but I think, is it fair to say that getting good, healthy levels of fats and cholesterol in the healthiest possible ways, that's going to be helpful?
The number one contributor of testosterone is diet. Diet and Mediterranean diet. Mediterranean diet is just a diet that is fruits and vegetables and lean meat. That's it. That's it. And I call it eat what the earth gave you. Whatever the earth grows for you, just eat that. Don't eat anything in a bag or a box, and eat whatever much you want. And that's number one. So if you change your diet to non-processed food, you can literally double your testosterone level, whatever
Yeah.
that is. You can double it within 6 weeks. We see that in our patient. Number two
Well,
is exercise with weight training. When you if you exercise and you do weights, the muscle itself has testosterone receptors in there. So when you increase the muscle mass, you also increase testosterone receptor, and then there's a feedback loop, which then help you make more
more
testosterone.
receptors, more demand, more production. And that, I understand that the muscles that are best for that really are the big quads, hamstrings, glutes. Like those, for men, those are really big for testosterone production. Is that accurate?
Yeah, most of the time, because those are the large muscles. Those are the large muscles. That's why we recommend that men do high intensity interval exercise that will improve the muscle demand, and diet. Not everybody can do a HIIT exercise, right? But diet itself can improve that. And then the other way is to also get testosterone replacement therapy to a level that is therapeutic for the man. And I want to preface it by saying every man has a different sweet spot of testosterone level. Not all men gonna feel good at 900 total testosterone. Now, some men feel great at 400. Some men feel horrible at 400. But research has shown that your testosterone receptor in every cell of your body is different. Every
Right.
man has a different receptor, and therefore, testosterone replacement therapy has to be customized and individualized for each man.
I shouldn't just go down to the local gym and walk up to the biggest dude and ask him for help. Is that what you're trying to say?
Yep, absolutely. And it can be dangerous. It can be dangerous too, because when you have because what I see, what most testosterone clinics do is they just jack up your testosterone level really high, even above 1,000, even above 1,500. And they go, oh yeah, more testosterone, better. Not necessarily. Mother
No.
Nature doesn't like to be high, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
when you
Plus, on
do
top of
that,
that,
yeah,
my experience of that is that testosterone, in a sense, sort of magnifies aspects of your personality. And so if you're a bit of a dick, or you're a little aggressive anyway, next thing you know, you're overdoing the testosterone and you're uncontrollable. So I think that's a different problem. I want to say, relative to the diet thing, the test numbers that I shared with you earlier are from somebody that I know that follows a very, let's say, ancestral diet path and is, say, roughly 55 years old. And those numbers seem to be working really well. But now my question is about the sex hormone binding globulin. If that number, what causes that number to come up, and how can one bring it back down?
yeah, that's the good thing. That's a good question. It actually comes up with stress. It comes up when you have more estrogen or fat. So if a man starts to have a little love handle and more
There's
fat
no milk and
there,
top.
yeah, it will actually increase, and it will actually increase. And that sometimes taking protein powder, sometimes will increase that as well. So if you're taking protein powder, you need to be aware of your SHBG level. Stress will also increase SHBG level as well too. So when you're looking at hormone, you need to measure that protein level, because that's how you're gonna really gauge what is the bioavailability of the testosterone.
I've got you. I know you've already touched on some of these things, but if you could rapid fire for us, somebody who either wants to maintain their existing functional sexual health or somebody who would like to reset it and improve it, talk to me about top 7 list or top 10 list of daily practices that are going to help them to maintain or repair.
Absolutely. So there are 4 pillars to sexual health. And remember, sexual health also equate to good cardiac health, good heart health, equate equals longevity. And the first one is diet. What you eat is pivotal to your health. And avoid processed food. And we recommend the Mediterranean diet, which is endorsed by the American Diabetic Association, American Heart Association, to control blood pressure, heart disease, as well as blood sugar. And then number 2 is exercise. And optimally, if you can do high interval intensity exercise 3 times a week, the best. But if you can't do that because of physical condition, and just walk. I did tell men sometimes
Yeah.
walking, bicycling, swimming,
Take the stairs, skip the escalator.
exactly. They're even plain old walking and walking about 30 minutes, 3 to 4 times a week is optimal. It's not a lot, 30 minutes, 3, 4 times a week. And that's number 1. And then number 3 is sleep. Getting optimal sleep, 7 hours of sleep between the hours of 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. is optimal. Because when you sleep, several things happen. When you sleep, your testosterone, you make testosterone in your testicles. And then when you sleep, your body heal physically and mentally. Physical healing occurs from 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. Mental healing occurs from 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. So like how your body resets. And then number 4 is stress management. And I know that's sometimes hard for men to do, but stress management, it can be just socializing with your family, doing things that you love, fishing or hanging out with your guy friend, and exercise. Exercise is also a form
It's
of
very good
stress.
for men in that sense. Yeah.
Right, as well. And even embracing perhaps meditation practices that can help with the stress reduction. Because when you are stressed, your body releases a stress hormone called cortisol, and the cortisol dampen thyroid. It decreases thyroid function. It decreases testosterone function. It's like a dampener. It's like the father of all the hormones. And
It
then
makes
those are
very
the
good
4
sense.
pillars.
It
Yeah.
also makes very good sense. The reality is that if we're talking ancestrally here, if you're under a great deal of stress, then this is probably not the best time for manufacturing children. It's probably a suppressive thing. If the environment is too stressful, this is not the right time to be conceiving. That makes a lot of sense. I was thinking about you're saying like get out and walk. And I said, skip the stairs. I was traveling with a buddy of mine once, and he noticed that I will not take the moving sidewalks. And I will go up the escalator, or I won't go up the escalator. I'll go up the stairs, and I have a bag to carry. And he said to me, "Why are you doing that?" And I'm just kidding around. I go, "Foreplay." And he said,
I
"What?"
love that.
And I go, "Yeah, it's foreplay." And he goes, "Foreplay for what?" And I'm going, "Hey man, these legs, they're making testosterone. They're making it happen. So I'm going up these stairs for tomorrow." By the way, he never takes the escalator anymore.
Oh, I have to borrow that, Eric.
Yeah, you
That
go
is
right ahead.
all. I have to borrow that. I'm gonna call it the foreplay,
I had
the
another one like
foreplay
that
app.
recently. Another one that got me for women. And I was reading this thing that said that if women get like an extra hour of sleep compared to men in the night, their libido skyrockets comparatively. And I found that really fascinating. It's really funny because like my partner and I, my fiance and I, we just got engaged, and when we first met, we were like working a lot. So we often had to be up early. And I assumed she was just an early bird. She's an early riser. But then when we settled into life, I found out it's not true. She likes to have a bit of a sleep in the morning. And I find it a little frustrating. Okay, let's go for a walk. Let's do something. Then I read this thing. No, let the woman sleep an hour longer. And now I'm super quiet. Keep the light. You get that hour, baby. It's going to be amazing. So it's funny when you know the why, you can make some change.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think that I want to add about the 4 pillars. I want to add also smoking. Smoking is a sexual performance killer, and that moderate your alcohol intake. So you can have 14 drinks a week or 2 drinks a day, which is pretty generous. It's just that studies have shown when a man drinks more than 3 drinks a day, then it does affect performance. So I just call it the power of 14 drinks a week. Whether you drink it all in one weekend or every day, just keep it around 14 drinks a week, and that should be fine. And then another thing is porn. Don't watch porn. It messes with how your brain process information for arousal and desire. It just really just messes it up with the dopamine release. And I'm tending toward to go to none rather than minimal. And but those are the main things that
Okay.
a man, if he feels that he's not his usual performance a level, is to start evaluate those steps. What is he doing?
I would offer maybe one little bit of a modification on the alcohol one. And maybe I'm not the best one to offer because I don't drink at all and I haven't for 35 years or something. But what I would say is that the idea that you have this sort of maximum of drinks that you're having in the week, whether you have them every day or you have them on the weekend, my version of that is I would rather, if clients of mine come and ask me, I would rather say to them, have those drinks in a shorter period of time. Have the same number if you want, but have them on the weekend and then let your body recover all week long. At the end of the day, that's a tremendous amount of sugar to intake, which causes circulatory problems and makes their blood sticky. And so let's say you want to have 10 drinks in a week, you have them over the weekend, then your body's got this whole week to repair, your blood is cleansing and so on. Whereas if they're having that 2 or 3 every day, I feel like you're straining it every single day. Just my thought about that. I don't know how that lands for you.
Oh no, I totally agree with you. And so that's what I said. Doesn't matter whether you do it on the weekend or on the weekday, just know what your par number is and try to stay under that as well. And I can't tell you how many men I talk to and they go, oh, that's a lot. Most of them say that's a lot. And as long as human being, we know, as long as we know what we need to do to avoid things, we tend to do that more. It's easier for us to avoid than it is for us to do. So I try to put things that stop and avoid, and then the things that we need to do, that takes time.
So there's one thing I, in a sense, want to wrap on. It's just, for some reason, we've created a culture or a set of cultures around the world that taboo sex and make the conversation difficult. So on the one hand, you have a man who might be, let's say, not performing at the level that you want to perform, but then might feel some sense of shame to discuss that with his wife. But then now she doesn't know why he's not interested. And now she starts to feel rejected. And that's basically cancer in the relationship. And then equally on the other side, there's the woman who might start to take personally the lack of reaction in that sense. And I think the real problem here is neither of them speaking about it. And so it becomes this malignant issue within the relationship. Do you have any advice on how men and women can bridge that gap and open that door gently so that they are able to talk more openly about it? And I say it from this perspective. I know that a friend of mine was going through some issues with this and was contemplating the little blue pills and all this kind of stuff. And he described exactly that situation to me, was that he is afraid to even start because he's concerned that it won't happen. And so he doesn't start. So she feels rejected, which makes her resentful, which makes her treat him not as well, which reduces his testosterone. And they're in a terrible loop, right? It's nobody's fault. It's just happening. And so if I go get a little blue pill, then the whole problem is solved. And funny enough, I said to him what you said, hold on, this is the root of another problem. Don't mask that. You got to find out what the real problem is. But in the meantime, what I'd love to know from you is, how do you encourage couples? What mechanisms are there? How can they bridge that gap, have those hard conversations so that they can sort this out for them?
And that we encounter that story all the time. And it first starts with really be vulnerable. This is your wife, this is your partner, being vulnerable. And I'll start with I, and don't say you. Avoid you. Start with
That's good.
I. Yeah, start with I.
That's a good start.
I. Because I hear that story that you say all the time. Because the man's not able to perform, so he avoids sex, and his partner feels that he's not attracted to her, or he's having an affair. She's resentful, and then when he try to make a move, she pushes him away. And there's this almost 2 different stories that is going on in the relationship, and it creates more resentment, right? And of course, the man senses that, oh, she's not interested. Then she must know that I have ED. I'm not even going to try. I can't tell you. I have seen marriages get broken up because of that. But we do know one thing. We do know that a supported partner is also a treatment for a man with ED. That's
Yeah,
very
yeah,
important.
yeah.
So a supported
Eh,
partner is a mode of treatment also.
Yeah, and this is hard, and this is a tough thing to say, but a non-supportive partner can be the cause of, or the amplifier, or the trigger of. And I went through an experience of this many years ago, having a really jealous partner. And basically, we'd be out, and if I glanced in the direction of a woman, I would suffer consequence. And even as I say this, I'm embarrassed that there was a version of me that would put up with that as a behavior, but I did. And I remember the day that I realized it had to end. We were in a movie, we were in the movie theater, and the lights came up at the end of the movie, and everybody stood up. And there were two women in front of us that were in the row ahead of us, and they were drop dead gorgeous. And I realized that by accident, I'm facing them. And so I turned to my side so I wouldn't be caught looking at them. I wasn't looking at them, but I turned to my side, and horror, shock, there was a hottie right there. And so I'm like, what do I do now? I turned to face the back of the theater, and to my shock and horror, there was a woman with major cleavage right there behind me. And so I turned and I just faced my partner. I'm so embarrassed, Anne. I did, but what I realized was that what she was teaching me is, do not produce testosterone in my company. Like, she was desexualizing me. She was basically, and what's amazing is my fiance now, she takes a totally different approach. If we're walking along in the mall and there's a woman walks by and she's super sexy, check out that outfit. Look at that. She encourages me to look around and have fun. We were in Dubai recently, and she hunted down in the Dubai Mall, this hair salon place, and it's a hair salon place. I swear I want to take over their marketing for them, because they're missing the biggest point. That hair salon place, it's not about getting a nice shave and a haircut and a massage and a facial. That place is a testosterone factory. You walk in, there's these beautiful girls, they flirt with you. It's fake. What? It still works, right? They do your beard, they cut your hair, they laugh at your inane jokes, and you walk out of there feeling like a god. And I think you're absolutely right. The right partner can be a massive cure, because first of all, they can give you permission to feel sexual and to produce testosterone, as it were, but they can also then learn these mechanisms to say, hey, how do I support this journey? So I love that message, Anne.
Yeah, what I say is show you're vulnerable and start with I more, less of you. Because when somebody said you, it's really more turning toward you. Did you did I do something wrong? Is it a blame? And be able to be so vulnerable and just tell your partner how you feel. You can just start with, I've been having trouble getting an erection, and I don't know what's causing it, but I do know that I want to be with you. I love you. I care for you. And I want to know how you feel about it. So that's why I said I.
All right. I want to share quite a personal experience that I went through years ago that frankly completely changed my life. I wish this experience for all of the men that are in their late 30s that are headed into this testosterone alley, and need to know that there's the mental and physical components to all this. And here's what happened. I was speaking at an event in Copenhagen, and I was doing marketing training and consulting and that kind of stuff. And this one woman, I was doing a Q&A session, and she says, I am a tantric massage practitioner. And I was like, I'd never heard of that. This is whatever, almost 20 years ago. I'd never heard of that. I said, what does that mean? And she goes, it means that I do tantric massage professionally for people to help clear their energies, clear their sexual energies, and so on. I go, aren't you just a rub and tug escort? And she's, no, we don't, there's none of that. There's no happy endings. It's not like that. She goes, in fact, if you want to come to the clinic, I'll give you an example of this. I don't know, a few days later, I went to their facility, gorgeous place, and full of, I don't know how to put it, but the decor was just hot. You just walk in and you feel good. And then she goes, go into that room, undress, and lay down on the bed. And I go for massage, and you get down to the nothing and you lay down on the massage, everything's gonna be fine. But then she walked in naked. And Anne, I had a meltdown. Now, look, I know in Europe, if you go to the sauna in Germany, they're not wearing any clothes. That's just the way it's going to be. You grow up in North America, it's a little different, right? So she walks in naked. I'm going, hold on. We said, I'm married. This isn't what we're here for. And she goes, no, there's not any sexual contact. And this is where she changed my life. She says, I'm going to be massaging you. I'm going to be rubbing my body on you. There will be no sexual contact. There will be no direct genital contact. And it's just going to be this thing for 2.5 hours. And I was like, Jesus, really? And she goes, yeah. And she says, now you need to know something. It's really likely that you're gonna get an erection. And in my head, I'm going, Jesus, I'm probably gonna. I don't. Women maybe can't relate to this, but you spend the first 20 years of your life terrified of your erection, and you spend the last 20 of your life wondering where it went. Right? So what's going on here? And so she's, like, you're probably gonna get an erection, and she goes, and that's okay. And the minute she said that, the thought worm went away, the worry went away. Then, and this was magical, she goes, and it's likely that it'll go away too. And that's okay. And then it might come back and it might not. And this might happen in cycles as your energy is moving through your body. And I got to tell you, that day changed my life because, of course, I'm a guy and I'd been in a situation where, oh, it's been a long night already. And what if it goes away? And the minute you start to stress about it, guess what happens? It wants to go away. She taught me the security of knowing those cycles, and it really changed. Again, I want to put to you that partner that provides that nurturing, open, trusting environment can play such a vital role. Really, I'm so glad you shared that.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. Now I'm curious, what happened with that tantric massage incident?
It was no happy ending.
Yeah,
I went through the whole experience. It was life-changing for me. I came home and I did have a kind of a weird, geez, I'm not into secrets and stuff. And I'm going to have to tell my wife. And I feel like it did cross the line a little bit. I didn't mean to. And so I went and told her, and her reaction was, when's my turn? And so I took her to Denmark and she went and had her own experience and so on. So I think it was life-changing. Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm gonna have to remember about that. But absolutely. And then it's also feeling safe in a relationship, feeling safe, feeling trusted. And that if you are the partner of the man that has ED, all he needs to know is that you have his back. And that you
Yeah.
have his back, and that it is not shameful to have that condition, and that you support him in his recovery. And believe it or not, just that support and knowing that you got his back alone is probably 50% of the way for his recovery already.
There you go.
He's
There you
already
go. I love
there
that.
because you know that you're going to support him. And as a man, there's nothing more powerful than knowing that his partner support him in every way and you got his back.
Yeah, I
And
agree.
that's how you want to present that.
I asked my fiance the other day just why she treats me the way she does sometimes, because I feel so honored and respected. And she goes, you have all these women out there, they're looking for a king, but they treat their husband like a prince and they wonder why he doesn't become a king. And she goes, that's why I treat you that way. And I just fell in love with her all over again. It was just a
Oh,
beautiful statement. All right, Anne, we're
I love that.
gonna go one more deep topic here. All right. We're going to talk about retention. We're going to talk about what the retention game. So for background, John Gray, who wrote the Mars Venus books and countless other books on hormones and sexual health and so on, and Dave Asprey, one of the godfather of biohacking. I was with the two of them. They're good friends of mine. And all of a sudden we end up in this deep conversation about withholding. And John's saying, look, it's really important not to actually ejaculate. You shouldn't do that. You got to hold it all the time. It's Taoist. And then Dave's, it's like a longevity thing and so on and so forth. And I have to tell you that in my model of the world, and I'm all about evolutionary biology, and I've written about this in the Evolution Gap. My feeling is that if you have two men and one of them is, say, ejaculating on a regular basis, that's probably a pretty good indication to his DNA that he's still useful and that he's still valuable. And if he's not ejaculating all that often, it probably means he's a bit of a failure and not a particularly good hunter, and certainly not. So one of my principles is that if anybody offers me science or an idea or a fad that violates evolutionary biology, it doesn't mean it's wrong, but it definitely means it's suspect. So here I am listening to these guys talk about withholding and not ejaculating and all this kind of stuff. And then it brings up for me this question of that doesn't seem to make sense in the evolutionary sense. So hey, this is your field. What's the deal? Should we be withholding? Should we be coming as often as we can? What's the deal?
Well, there has been research that's written about this, whether retention does that improve sexual function. And the research has shown that when you do retention, and it does not improve your testosterone level, it does not improve your sperm count, and physiologically, it doesn't enhance anything. But I think what men feel is that they feel better. They feel more energy, and there's nothing wrong with that. Men, if you believe in that, then you will become that. And I think that's what the individual variability is like. So
Yeah.
there's a reason why for a man, every time he ejaculates, he has 300 million sperm. There's a reason why, because you make a lot of sperm. And so whether you ejaculate every day or whether you ejaculate once a month, it doesn't matter to your reproductive capacity. But if you do whole retention, it may magnify the intensity of the orgasm.
Yeah, that
And
I
it,
completely agree with. Yeah.
yeah,
In the evolution gap, we have a whole section on what we call pleasure fasting, and there's been a sort of popularization of that under the idea of dopamine fasting. But we talk about pleasure fasting and pleasure amplification, and that's a different issue. And I completely agree with that. I think that as a young man, we counted success by, say, the number of ejaculations in an evening in a sexual encounter. As an older man, I don't mean that I'm older. I'm just older than before. But I measure it very differently now. I have, let's say, I prefer to have really serious staying power and then much more intensity. And so from that perspective, I agree with the holding idea. But I must say the idea of I'm going to hold for some of these guys in the tantric space are saying that they never do it. Yeah, that doesn't make a great deal of sense to me.
yeah. And I think that it's all individual. I want to give the signs that there isn't any physiological advantage, but if you feel that it enhances your orgasm level and even the volume and the intensity of ejaculation, that's great. And I have a good friend. He is 63 years old and he practices retention.
Yeah.
And he said when he does that, he can have 3 to 4 orgasms a day when he has sexual intercourse. He has a younger wife, younger, very attractive wife, and he practiced retention. And but the thing is, it may not be for every man.
Yeah.
And I can tell you that my husband doesn't want to do that. He said, I enjoy doing what I'm doing, so I'm just going to do that. So it doesn't necessarily mean that every man have to do this. And I think it's individualized. And if you feel that you do this and you have a
Benefit.
great sexual experience, then continue to do it.
Sounds good. And it's been such a pleasure. I'm really glad that we got to do this again. And tell us, how do people find you? Where are you sharing good content? If somebody really wants to engage you, where do they find you?
I share and educate about sexual health and sexual longevity on my YouTube channel. You can find it at Truong Rehabilitation Center, like my name right here, and my YouTube channel. That's where you can find everything you want to know about sexual health. And I'm very passionate about teaching men about sexual health that they can manage on their own. Because I feel that if you know what you need to do to prevent, you don't will not have any issues. And I give something out for free. We have a Good Morning Wood smoothie recipe, which has been proven to really help our men if they take it daily to really decrease in inflammation level and help with morning wood. Your listeners can go to getwoodnow.com for the
That's a
Good
great
Morning Wood
URL.
smoothie. And then they can go to my website at truongrehab.com, and that's where they can, if they're interested in making an appointment or finding more services that we do. But I am a believer in, you don't know what you don't know, and once you know what you need to do, and I hope to educate and prevent every man from suffering in silence with ED. Our message: if you have ED, you don't have to suffer in silence. You don't have, there are other alternatives, and try not to take the ED medication. Sometimes ED medication needs to be an easy route, but there are ways that you can reverse function and optimize it. I see men in their 90s are doing this. So and that's why we have solidified our 4 pillars, and that is really come down to the basics: diet, exercise, sleep, and stress. And it doesn't cost you any more money that at this point, and you don't even need to eat organic
There you go.
at all.
And that's just wonderful. I really appreciate it. And frankly, on behalf of men, thank you for doing what you're doing out there. It's a big deal. And ladies and gentlemen, you heard it here first, getwoodnow.com. And we'll make sure to share all your links in the show notes and so on. And for wrapping up, I just want to say I love the Wilder Life podcast. It gives me the opportunity to just converse with some really fascinating people and learn all kinds of great things, constantly focusing on working to close the evolution gap. Remember that you can always go and do the Gap Finder assessment at gapfinder.com. truong.com. And what I'd like to suggest is, of course, that you like and subscribe and so forth, the podcast on whatever platform you're using on. But what I'd really like you to do this time is I'd like you to think about the men and the women out there that are possibly maybe thinking about this situation and maybe not feeling so comfortable to talk about it. And maybe sending them an episode like this will open that conversation and dramatically improve things for them. Thank you so much for tuning into A Wilder Life. I'm Eric Edmeades, your host, and I'll see you next time.
I hope you've enjoyed this episode of A Wilder Life. Please leave a review and share it. A Wilder Life with Eric Edmeades.